Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whenever the fuck you're listening. Welcome to another episode of Tailgate Trash Talk, Season 2. I got my man Gary Freeze with me. Gary, how you doing, bud?
Doing good, man. We've got college football this weekend. I know there's not a lot of big games on the slate, but we got college football back, bud.
That's right. It's week 0, baby. It's week
Yes,
0.
sir. Yes,
So
sir.
before we get into this week's games, let's just recap last week what we kind of talked about. Uh, Obviously, we talked about the conference realignment and everything that has been going on in the background in college football there, NIL a little bit, and there's still some rumblings of some more realignment with
Yes, sir.
Oregon and the Big Ten.
Yeah, I think we're leaning farther and farther into the super conference thing. I know that the original talk of super conferences was back when Missouri and A&M came over to the SEC, and then Nebraska left the Big 12 along with who else left when they left? One other team, I can't remember who.
What's
But
going on, Aaron?
what's
Appreciate
up,
you
Aaron?
joining me, bud.
But that all kind of started back when the SEC and the Big 12 started or the Big 10 started poaching teams, and we're getting closer, I think. And then there was the news that kind of broke. I realized it broke before the show, but I didn't see it till after the show, that there are other people floating the idea out there that football might be kind of standalone. So I think this is a developing situation that is going to start picking up steam, and we're going to start to see, as the snowball rolls down the hill, it's going to start getting bigger and bigger, and we might be less than the 5 to 7 years time frame than I originally thought. And we had talked about that being kind of a possible timeline. We might be close. We might be real close to football just breaking away, and we might end up in a situation where we finally get the NFL and the NCAA, quote unquote, if it's still the NCAA, but they can stop playing fuck games, and collegiate football can just be minor league football, right? And that's, to me, I think we're going to get to that point, and that's what it's going to be. And these schools are going to be able to bring guys in, and it might be only a year, right? We might get to a situation where it's a little like basketball, where you play a year and you can go to the NFL. Possibly. There's certain exceptions that a guy like a Jadeveon Clowney might have been ready for the NFL at 19, 20 years old, but not everybody is. But you see that in basketball too. So I think they're going to find a way to manage that. But I do think we're getting closer to just pull the veil, pull back the curtain, and just say college football is minor league football.
Yeah, and one thing too that we talked about last week as well. We talked about the realignment of some conferences with some teams and everything here in the coming years, but we also talked about basically the two leading conferences with everything being the Big Ten and the SEC, and literally probably 20, 30 minutes after our podcast ended last week, then the big news comes out that the Big Ten just struck a $7 billion TV deal with Fox, Peacock.
Amazon's got part of it, doesn't it?
I believe so.
I think it's Amazon's got part of that deal. It's crazy. And ESPN's got to be sweating a little bit, because I know Herb Street was on the McAfee show recently talking about that, and they've still got the rights for about 2 years. But after that 2 years, they're losing a big part of. I mean, ESPN, the ESPN family broadcasts a ton of Big Ten football, and now you're kind of in a situation where you might not have the big name. I know the SEC is still part of the ESPN family, but having that Big Ten slate of games as well. But right. Is the SEC going to get a new TV deal?
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to look at what the Big Ten's doing and say, whoa.
Well, and if you, the one thing that the SEC, I think, has going for them is look at the national champion, the last 10 years. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, and so that can be a big driving force. The NIL money, where's all that? What are the schools, with the biggest NIL deals? The top recruiting classes. What schools have had the top recruiting classes? And you have the Georgia, the Texas A&M, Alabama, right up there. So that can be a big driving factor in moving forward with some TV deals here as well.
Yeah, for sure. And you talk about football hotbeds in America. You've got Florida, you've got Texas, you've got California, and then there's some states will make an argument that they've got good football. The Northeast has a little bit. Some of the Midwest folks, they put out a lot of the big corn-fed offensive linemen that are driving a lot of these these offensive lines. But the SEC right now has two of those essentially on lockdown: Florida and Texas, because not only is A&M in the SEC, but we know that Texas is eventually moving to the SEC as well, along with Oklahoma. Oklahoma's another one of those kind of football-ish hotbeds of, high school football, producing a lot of high caliber athletes as well. So the SEC's got two of those hotbeds locked down. Where's the TV money? Because we've got all of this talent, we've got to keep it in the SEC, but we got to have the money to pay these NIL deals, and I think the TV money that the Big Ten's getting is going to start to sway how the NIL is handled. Some schools are doing it right now with these, what they call them, the collectives. I think we're going to see a lot more schools and conferences also with collectives to give incentives to these players as they come into play for not only just the Big Ten, but also for these schools. Yeah. I mean, Oklahoma has.
I'll get back with you on that, Gary. But yeah, Aaron, Oklahoma steals all the Texas boys. You can make an argument that they're getting the leftovers that maybe A&M is not getting, but that Texas is not getting.
UT has not recruited the state of Texas since Mac Brown left, really. And even at the end of Mac Brown's tenure, they weren't winning in the state of Texas like they were for a long time. And it shows in the results on the field. Texas hasn't been prominent in a long time. So,
yeah, absolutely. So I want to get your thoughts on this real quick. And it's going back to conference realignment and the TV deals. Okay. So last Wednesday after our episode, the Big Ten TV deal came out. Okay. A couple days later, or if not the next day, then there's the talk of Oregon joining the Big Ten. So how much? So let me pose this question to you here. How much do you think that Oregon and the Big Ten are really in talks of seeing if Oregon is a good fit?
They're in the last stages of said talks. And it goes back to what you asked last week, and I hadn't thought about it until you asked it, but how much did Link know about USC moving when he came over to USC, right? I assume, that he was informed. I have to assume that Oregon knew there was this big money contract coming, because what does Oregon have? They've got all that Nike money.
Or here's my other question. How much of a driving factor was that price negotiation for the TV deal to be like, okay, you bring Oregon in, here's the number?
Oh, sure. I can imagine that was part of it as well.
They're playing it,
Yeah. Just getting more and more brand names, right? Because Oregon's got all that Nike money. USC is USC, and looking at it from that perspective. Yeah, absolutely. You've got the city of LA, and now you've got Nike up there in Eugene. Of course, the Big Ten and any TV partners want to see that, because what does everybody know Oregon for? The flash on the television screen, right? All the jerseys, the helmets, all that stuff. That's a big thing for the TV personnel to be able to promote. We see it in the Big Ten with Maryland, where Maryland's not a great team, but everybody knows that Maryland's got all the crazy Under Armour uniforms. So for sure, I think you're absolutely right that this is the last stages of Oregon making the transition into the Big Ten for sure.
Yeah, and and we talked last week about if it's not done before, week 0, probably won't see it happening during the season. On this one, though, if it doesn't happen by the end of this week, I think this one would. I think this one would be during the season.
I think so. I agree with you. I think this was their way of kind of wedging it in before week 0 to say this is going on, and during the season, this transition will probably happen.
Yeah. Well, and
I agree.
And also too, and you and I touched base on it last week as well after the podcast. But it's news, especially with Fox being a TV partner here. What news did they come out with on Friday afternoon, late afternoon, early evening?
I don't know.
Urban Meyer will be back on the Fox show on. Yeah,
that's right. I forgot that.
Yep.
Back in the Big Ten, back doing Ohio State games, of course.
Yeah.
Fucking Urban Meyer.
Aaron, ESPN should get the Manning brothers on some SEC. Absolutely.
Listen, on that note, McAfee's doing some games with Omaha Broadcasting this season, so he's going to be doing some simulcasts. So Peyton is getting into Peyton and Eli. He announced it on the show. They haven't made a huge kind of to-do about it yet. They've got a couple of games slated, but yeah, he's going to be doing some simulcasts on. It's going to be fun. Yeah, it's going to be put together by Omaha Broadcasting, Peyton and Eli's, or Omaha Productions, whatever it is. But their production company is going to be putting them together. So McAfee's going to be doing some simulcasts. I assume, I don't know for sure, but I assume we'll probably see Peyton and/or Eli at times joining said simulcast. And Aaron, I've been a big hater on the Mannings. That whole family kind of just gets under my skin. Start with Archie being overrated and Peyton just being an asshole, and I don't like him. And Eli is Eli.
The giant.
Yeah. But honestly, like, I turned a corner with what they did on TV with the games. I thought they were pretty good. So I understand where Aaron's coming from, and it is interesting to see, McAfee signing that deal potentially. Yeah, Aaron. But potentially seeing the Mannings doing some college games, so would be interesting.
Very cool. Yeah, good deal. Okay, so that was just a recap of what we talked about last week with a few new items that kind of came right after our podcast ended last week. So we touched base on the top 10 for the AP top 25 poll. So we're going to run down 11 through 25, and then we'll get into some week 0 matchups and go from there. So Gary, number 11, Oregon. So let's do 11 through 15 here. Let's just run through the next 3 rows here. Oregon 11, Oklahoma State 12, the Wolfpack at 13, SC at 14, and Michigan State 15. Do you like where this is?
I think we're gonna agree here, because I heard the inflection of your voice when you said SC at 14. I'm not a buyer yet, because that program has not been good for a long time, right? It's been probably a real decade since they've had some sustained success. They've had good players come in and out, but I just don't know that I buy that Link's going to turn it around and they're going to be a top 15 team this year. I think in year 2 and 3 is when I would expect that, when he starts to get his guys in, starts to get his system in place. I will say this, having Caleb Williams follow him to SC, I think is going to expedite that process a bit, because 1, Caleb has familiarity, but 2, he's also like a dynamic, unbelievable athlete and can just make some plays. So I think they'll win some games this year. But this is the one that sticks out to me. I like the respect that the NC State's getting, because they had a great season last year and they returned a lot of starters this year.
Especially on defense. That
defense is great.
Yeah, defense was very good last year. I think they returned like 10 starters.
I think that's the number, yeah.
and they returned some guys that were injured last year too that did not play.
And I believe the projected 11th starter is a defensive end transfer, if I remember correctly, for the NC State. So I believe they've got experience all the way across the board on that defense. I like Oklahoma State. Speaking of defense, that defense is pretty awesome as well. And of course, I like Mike Gundy. I don't have any issues in 11 through 15. Honestly, you could probably shuffle them a little bit. I think I might have put Oklahoma State ahead of Oregon right there, but I like Michigan State and what they're building and what they bring back. So I'm okay with 11 through 15, with the exception of what we talked about with SC. I just don't know that I buy Lincoln Riley winning a ton of games in year one.
Yeah, I'm totally in agreement with you on SC there. Michigan State kind of needs to be up there, especially with the massive contract that the coach got last year, 10-year, $90 million or whatever it was.
They better hope they're a top 15 team.
Yeah, exactly. The only other one that kind of surprises me a little bit, and maybe it's just because it's a West Coast team and really haven't followed much of the West Coast teams, lately, just because they've struggled. And the only reason why we knew of, Oregon last year was because of Thibodeau, and they beat Ohio State early on.
With that being in the CFP, and we bitched about them all year.
And so I really don't know what they're returning or anything else like that. So being at number 11 for me, I think is a stretch, but I think they're going to be right there at the top of the Pac-12 out there. But yeah, in total agreement with you on SC there. I don't think that they're number 14, let alone top 25 by any means. So 16 through 20, 16 you got the U, 17 Pitt, 18 Wisconsin, 19 Arkansas, and 20 the Wildcats of Kentucky. Gary, you see any issues with 16 through 20 here?
17 for me is the one that sticks out that I have an issue with. Losing Pickett, losing their number one wide receiver to that big NIL deal he signed to go to SC. I don't know that Pitt's going to have enough horses. I know they play in the ACC, and the ACC's, it's a little top heavy with Clemson, and then everybody else. It seems they shuffle back and forth every year. But for me, it's Pitt. I think Miami's on the rise, so I won't gripe too much about them being at 16. But my issue is with Pitt at 17. I actually would not have Pitt in the top 25 to start the season because of the loss of Pickett and losing the talent. I mean, they lost not just Pickett. They lost a big wide receiver to the draft, and then they lost a wide receiver to the NIL who was supposed to be their number one playmaker this year. And they've got basically a redshirt freshman that's going to be starting this year because he got in one game last year, and it was pretty inconsequential. So I look at Pitt at number 17, and it doesn't add up for me. I will say I love 19 and 20. Love Arkansas and Kentucky getting the respect they're getting, just like NC State. I love them getting the respect they're getting. Love what Stoops is doing in Kentucky, and Wu Pig Sui had a great year last year. Let's keep that momentum going.
Yeah, so I agree with you on Pitt as well. The one key factor, though, that you did not mention is that they lost as well, is our offensive coordinator, Mark Whipple.
You're absolutely right. Yep. I left that. That's a big hit, too. Absolutely.
Yeah. So you're having a whole new offensive scheme come into play here. So, yeah, totally agree with you on Pitt on that one there. So, all right, 21 through 25, rounding out the top 25 here. You got Ole Miss at 21, Wake Forest 22, the Bearcats of Cincy 23, Houston 24, and BYU 25. Gary, I know you have some comments here with 21 through 25, so let's hear it.
Yeah, Ole Miss, I'm fine. Wake Forest, I think I'm okay with Wake Forest if Pitt wasn't in. 5 teams from the ACC here in the top 25, and yes, I'm lumping Notre Dame in as an ACC team here, but I just think, actually that would make 6, sorry, but to me, the ACC is not super strong. I would have put Wake Forest in over Pitt. I probably would have had Wake at like maybe 25. I like what they did last year, and they are returning some guys, and they lost their quarterback, which I know is going to hurt. We don't know how long he's going to be out. So if I had to redo my rankings from a few weeks ago before the announcement that he'd be out, I might drop Wake out of the top 25. My issue really, it feels like 23 through 25 were olive branches because we saw Cincinnati last year made it to the playoff. They lost their quarterback, but they returned a ton of guys. Like they've still got a lot of them dogs that were in the fight last year back. Love what Fickle does up there. He's a dude that'll fucking chew your face off and not think twice about it. Gritty guy. But Houston and BYU, I just feel like these were olive branches to say, like, oh, we're not going to play the game we always played. Everybody last year was saying, well, since he's going to get in, it's going to be the, oh, well, somebody got in, and then they can just ignore him from now on. And I just feel like this was kind of, what the fuck is Houston doing in the top 25? You know, that's my big thing. BYU, I do think is going to be good. I don't know that I would have had him in the top 25. I don't know what Houston's doing in the top 25. I could name probably 6, 7 teams that I might have put in over Houston. I don't get it. I know they've got some transfers that went there, but I don't see it. I don't see it with Houston. So I've got some issues here at the bottom, and I think the AP voters were just kind of throwing names out there to say, oh, I'm not going to forget about the little guy. Yeah.
Yeah. So my issue with, especially Cincy, like you mentioned, you know, yeah, they lost their quarterback, but they return a lot of people. Okay. They made the playoff last year. You have Clemson at number 4. You have SC at 14. You have some of these, you have Pitt at 17, who lost a ton more than Cincy did. Like, it just, I'm with you. It doesn't make sense for Cincy to be at 23. I would have probably had them top 15.
I was just gonna say, I look at it, they're top 15. I could see maybe 17 or so. I mean, between 14 and 18, you're kind of rack and stacking. So for me, I think I would have had them 15 or 16.
Okay, so let me ask you this, and you mentioned it just a couple minutes ago. You can see some teams that should probably be in the top 25, other than some of these other teams. Give me a school that you're high on that should have been in the top 25.
You know, for me, I look at a team like Tennessee. That's probably the biggest one for me. They were on the rise last year. Yeah. You know, that's probably the biggest snub for me. LSU is another one that comes to mind. I know last year, the last 2 years really were kind of a dumpster fire there, but they still have a ton of talent in the cupboard. And they're bringing Brian Kelly in, and it's LSU, and they're going to recruit again and again and again. And they had a good recruiting class this offseason despite all the turmoil from the last 2 years. LSU, I think, got a bit of a snub here. You know, I think I would have to flip a coin, though, between Tennessee and Iowa in terms of my biggest snub. Okay. Iowa was number 2 in the nation at one point last year, had a chance to win the Big Ten, possibly play in the playoff. And they didn't exactly lose a lot of people. So to me, I think Tennessee and Iowa are the 2 biggest ones that stick out to me. And LSU is another one that I'm like, wow, I can't believe the voters didn't. The SEC bias is a real thing. And I guess that just surprises me that Tennessee and LSU got left on the outside. And that was sort of what led me to think like 23 through 25 were olive branches. And then there's this weird ACC thing going on. The ACC isn't going to be that good. I can promise you by the end of the year, only 2 of those 6 teams that are in the top 25 are going to be any good.
We're on the same page there. We are on the same page.
I would have a different feeling toward teams like Tennessee and Iowa, especially.
Yeah.
What about you? You got any that you think got snubbed that should be in?
So you named some good ones. Another one that that has traditionally been in there, top 25 as of late. Starts off hot, then kind of loses that one main game that they should win or that they need to win. Big Ten school, Penn State. And then another one.
I think the voters have been jaded by them. I think there's some reality to that. That I think the voters have just gotten to the point where they don't want to give Penn State the benefit of the doubt to start the year.
Yeah. And then one other one, and I talked about them last week. They're on the rise. QB transfer, hoping to come in and get things going for them. Had a lot of momentum towards the end of last season to build off of, and that's South Carolina. Another SEC school.
Yeah, for sure. Beamer's got them going, man. You played that hype video last week, that conversation about, think about what the fans do to get in the stadium and shit. That's the right way to teach these kids.
Yeah,
and get them pulling in the same direction for sure. So yeah, I think South Carolina's got an opportunity to be a dark horse and potentially finish, somewhere near a New Year's Six bowl, right? They win enough games, they could be a top 10, top 15 team.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always a tough schedule in the SEC, but what South Carolina has going for them is they play in the SEC East. So
yeah. Yep.
They don't have to play Bama and Auburn and LSU and Texas A&M and Arkansas and all those teams in the SEC West every single season. So if there's a side of the board to be on in the SEC, they're on the right one.
Yep, exactly. All right, before we get to our week 0 picks, we'll take a quick sponsor break here. And thanks to our sponsor, PocketPairClub.com. Pocket Pair Club, club number 26882. PocketPairClub.com. That quick sponsor break was brought to you by PocketPairClub.com. Pocket Pair Club, club number 26881. PocketPairClub.com for all of your gambling needs. All right, Gary, the time has come. We have college football this week, bud.
We have college football in T-minus 3 days.
3 days. 3 days. We have college football. It's back. So, as we all know, week 0 is just, kind of just a culmination of getting back into college football form, really no big matchups this week, which week 0, there really never is. There's one key matchup that I think everyone is talking about, everyone is looking at and everything like that. So we'll get to that one. But I'm going to run down the rest of the games on Saturday. You give me your winners, and then we'll talk about the key one that is going to be talked about, and that has been talked about all week. First game, you got Austin Peay, Western Kentucky. Who you got?
Give me Western Kentucky. I think this is sort of a crapshoot.
Going with the Hilltoppers. I like it. All right. Idaho State and UNLV.
Give me the Rebs.
Yep. I'm with you on that one. UConn, Utah State. Utah State is favored by 26.
That's not enough. UConn's really bad. Really bad.
UConn is terrible. UConn is terrible. They finally won a game last year.
Yeah, they did. What is it, 27? I think they had lost in a row, 28.
Something like
and
that.
finally got off the schneid last year. It's not a good program up there. It sucks because they used to be pretty damn good when they had Randy Etley up there.
Ever since Orlovsky left.
Orlovsky left, and they haven't been great. He's running out of the back of the end zone in the NFL, but he was winning games at UConn.
All right. Wyoming at Illinois. Illinois is favored by 11.
Yeah, I think that's probably a good number. If Illinois can't beat Wyoming by a couple of scores, then they're gonna have a long season in the Big Ten.
I'm going opposite here. I'm going.
I'm going outright Wyoming.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going with the Cowboys.
Upset special. You were the king of the upset last year, so if you're out there listening, go put your money on Wyoming.
New season, bud. New season. Might as well start off right.
Right. Exactly.
You got next game. Duquesne and Florida State.
What is it? 30.
It doesn't even give me a spread.
Oh, that's right. It's off the board. It's off the board. That's how bad it is.
Yes.
Yeah, this is one you can take a nap through. Florida State by a bunch.
Yeah. And if they don't,
it's going to be a long year.
It's going to be a long year, and that coaching hot seat is going to be real hot. Real hot. All right, Charlotte, FAU favored by a tutty.
Yeah, I like FAU in this one. This is another one like the Austin P. Western Kentucky. I think it's a little bit of a crapshoot. You kind of don't know what you're getting. But give me FAU, probably by a tutty. That seems about right.
Okay. Florida, A&M, UNC. No, and there's no no spread on this one either.
As there shouldn't be. Give me UNC by 48.
The old tune-up game. That's right.
We got a couple of them in week 0. Oh, shit.
All right. North Texas, UTEP, even.
I'm surprised by that number, to be honest. I thought UTEP would be favored by 6 or so. So give me UTEP, honestly. If there's a place you can find a way to lay some points, if they'll give you a field goal to lay or something, I'd lay the points if you get a little better juice.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one, UTEP. Nevada, New Mexico State, Nevada by 9.
That seems about right. Nevada by a couple scores.
Yeah, I'm going opposite on this one. I'm going New Mexico State.
Okay.
Going New Mexico State.
The Aggies going to upset them?
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, at home, bud. It's at home.
That's true. That is a difference maker.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Last game before we get to the main one. Vandy going to Hawaii. Vandy's favored by 8.
They're not winning.
Vandy's not winning?
No.
Thank you.
Hawaii's a tough place to play. When you're an average team, Vandy's not great. Give me Hawaii in the upset here. 8-point upset. You get some good juice on that. You're getting like
absolutely
3-1, 2.5-1. So
yeah, I'm with you on that one. Hawaii.
Yeah,
for sure.
give me that upset special.
Yep. All right. The main game that everyone's been talking about: Nebraska, Northwestern in Dublin, Ireland. Nebraska's favored by 13. This is a noon kickoff on Fox. Who you got?
I've got Nebraska in this. I don't know that I'm laying all of 13. I just think overseas, I think it's going to be a little bit of a tighter game, but I do have Nebraska by like a tutty. I just think it's going to be one of those weird games. We see weird games when the NFL plays in London too. These neutral site games can be a little goofy, and you're going overseas. I like Nebraska. I hope, as we were kind of talking before the show, I hope that Scott Frost has his guy at quarterback and they stick with him, because he's already kind of alluded to, well, we might have more than one quarterback take snaps. He also said like specifically like he's going to take the first snap. Like, why do you have to specify he's going to take the first snap? So I think there's a little bit of in the back of Scott Frost's mind, he's kind of playing the quarterback carousel. But for a guy that we've talked about it on this show, that it feels like he is on a warm seat. It might even be a hot seat this year. I know he's the beloved son, and he's going to get the benefit of the doubt there in Omaha, but or Lincoln, I mean. But give it up with the quarterback carousel. Make a decision. Stick with a guy. Go with it. I think they're going to get enough in game one here that you'll see some consistency there at quarterback. I see this as a little bit of a bounce back year for Nebraska. Honestly, I think we're going to see better football out of them. I don't know if I'm hoping against hope. I don't know. Am I crazy, Stowe, for thinking they're going to be better this year than they've been the last couple?
You're a true Husker fan then, bud. True Husker fan.
Maybe I am then.
So, okay, before I touch base on Nebraska, let's look at Northwestern. Pat Fitzgerald.
Like Fitzies.
Yep. Last year they were terrible. Okay. The coaches have picked them to finish second this year, and Nebraska 14th. Historically speaking, if you look at Pat Fitzgerald's teams, if they have a terrible year, they usually bounce back and have a good year and are in the contention of the Big Ten championship game. So last year was a shitty year. Here's the next year. So what kind of Northwestern team are we getting this year? Are we getting the good one that, that historically speaking, they're going to bounce back and have a good year? Honestly, I think Northwestern is definitely going to be better this year than they were last year. I hope they are better against Nebraska in this game. Nebraska, on the other hand, you mentioned Scott Frost being the golden child and the seat possibly being warm. It's not warm. It's been hot. It is hot. It's starting off hot. And I think that's where the coaching or the quarterback carousel is coming into play because he knows he's on the hot seat. And so if he needs to, he will be making changes.
You think he's going to coach a little desperate?
Yeah, desperation coaching in some aspects. He made the comment earlier or last week actually about Raiola being the new offensive line coach and having those boys, in practice throwing up 15 to 20 times a game, and everyone blew that out of proportion. Or I'm sorry, a practice. Let's be honest, they're not throwing up 15 to 20 times a game. It's tongue in cheek here.
Right. You're working them hard.
Yeah, they're working them hard, which they need to. Okay, because Nebraska's offensive line production last year, there was none. It was abysmal. Okay, so yeah, they need to bring someone in and get those boys into shape and fight in those trenches because that's where the battles are won. Battles are won in the trenches. And if you saw Twitter or anything else like that this week, you saw Scott Frost sliding down the stair rail, the chair rail there or whatnot, like a freaking high schooler. Give me Nebraska on this one and give me 17.
Laying the points.
Laying the points here. Nebraska is going to go out this year. I think they are going to have a better year. I think also with the quarterback transfer and Casey Thompson, you saw what he did last year, especially against Oklahoma. To me, this is a true quarterback that Nebraska has had in a long time. I'm not dissing on Martinez or anything else like that because he was a highly touted quarterback coming out of California when he was a freshman and everything else like that. But I think this is more of a true quarterback than Nebraska has seen in a long time. And so I think with that and bringing in Mark Whipple, who you saw the numbers that he did with Pickett.
That's such a big get.
Big get. I think Nebraska is going to be airing it out about 40, maybe 50 times against Northwestern here. And that's saying something for Nebraska. you're kind of going back to the Bill Callahan era when he brought in that West Coast offense and they got away from the running game.
Yeah.
So
I think you could see a bit of Nebraska look like the Blake Bortles UCF team when Frost was down there and they had a true quarterback. And I know Casey Thompson's a lot more athletic than Blake Bortles, not to completely diss Blake Bortles' athletic ability, but he's got that similar skill set with throwing the ball. And we saw what Scott Frost could do down there with a couple of undefeated teams, and one that they claimed a national championship with. When he had somebody under center, you mentioned Martinez. Martinez was always a dual threat guy, but he was always kind of a run first guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas I think Frost in that offense, and especially with Mark Whipple calling the plays and mentoring a quarterback, what he did with Kenny Pickett completely changed his trajectory to the NFL. I think you could see similar here with Casey Thompson and Mark Whipple, that combination. So yeah, for sure. I agree with you. I think having somebody who resembles a true quarterback for the first time in a long time is going to go a long way for that Nebraska offense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Didn't they get they got one, was it out of Oklahoma, or it was one of the Big 12 schools that they got a transfer wide receiver from, right?
Yes.
Big
12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they had the coldest doing air conditioning commercials, dude.
Baby,
how awesome is that, man?
That's the best one.
Dude, you got that name deal right there. Doing AC commercials.
Oh yeah, the coldest.
That reminds me of the Key and Peele skit too.
Yes, man. I saw that. I sent that to my buddies in the Husker in my Husker group chat, and they were dying.
Yep.
Oh man,
I'm the coldest.
Yep. Aaron, yeah, man. I mean, every year, it's just, Husker football, that's our team, that's our major league team in Nebraska. So yeah, always hope, and until there's not anymore. And then it's like, let's move on to next year, but, got to continue that sellout streak at Nebraska as well too. So I think this is, I truly believe that with the changes Frost has made, that this is the year that they bounce back. And, I see a 7-8, maybe 9-win season here for Nebraska.
I haven't looked at their whole schedule. I like what they've done in terms of focusing on bringing in some weapons to complement getting Casey Thompson and giving Mark Whipple, some tools to work with. But 7, 8, 9 wins, yeah, sure. I might be a little more aggressive, but I haven't looked at their schedule. So
they don't play Ohio State. They play Wisconsin. They play Michigan.
They got Oklahoma out of conference.
Oklahoma. Here's the bad thing about their schedule, okay? Usually, if you go and play a game overseas, you would like to have the next week as a bye. They don't have a break until after Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So,
they play North Dakota.
That North Dakota's not,
I know. They're nothing to shake a stick at. And then,
exactly.
And then Georgia Southern has knocked some teams off and given some people headaches with that fucking triple option shit that they run down there.
Yeah. So they can't overlook anybody by any means.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah. So, all right, that's week 0. And before we conclude tonight's episode, with it being college football season starting in 3 days, Gary, what is one of your go-to tailgate foods?
Yeah, I rattled this around in my brain a little bit, and the traditional stuff, I kind of wanted to steer a little bit away from that. So I'm going to look at side dishes. And for me, when you're tailgating, if you don't have baked beans on your plate, you're not eating tailgate food to me, because that's stuff you could just throw in a crock pot. Yeah. Oh man, throw it in a crock pot, throw it on a plate.
You're simple.
Yeah, I'm a simple man. Something you can carry around the parking lot, throw it on a little sterno, or throw it in the throw it in the smoker and warm them up. You're good to go. Baked beans for me. That just it feels like I'm, maybe it's a thing for me being back home. We used to watch football and we'd grill up burgers and dogs, and my grandma would make some awesome baked beans to eat on the side. Maybe that's what it is for me.
Okay. Baked beans, man. I did not see that one coming.
I got to throw you a curveball once in a while.
Man. Oh.
What about you, bud?
So for me, when I think college football or football in general, tailgating, two things come to mind for me, okay? Little weenies.
Oh, yeah. That's another good finger food right there.
Yeah. Or
toothpicks and little weenies and just
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or jalapeno, bacon wrapped jalapeno poppers. We're on the Absolutely, bud. Absolutely.
That's another great finger foods are awesome for tailgating for sure. You got a beer in one hand, you're grabbing a fucking popper in another.
Yeah, they're simple to make. It's bacon. You can't go wrong with bacon.
Anything with bacon.
Yeah. And it's the perfect amount of spice, So yeah, bacon wrapped jalapeno poppers.
Love it.
Yeah. And Aaron, going back to your comment, yeah, grew up in the 90s with Big 12. So yeah, absolutely. I mean,
yeah,
I remember those boys. I remember watching them. I mean, I still watch some of those old games and just seeing how they manhandled their opponents. And, even when, you had the Washington Huskies, you had Oklahoma, you had Texas, you had some of those others, Colorado, those schools that were in the top 5, and Nebraska would be playing them, just them dominating those teams back in the day. And it started with those front guys, and, went down from there. And so, yeah, I wish Nebraska could get back to some sort of prominence, like they were. So, but Gary, college football starts in 3 days, bud.
Yes.
Let's fucking go.
So glad to be back with some games on the slate.
Yes,
Did
sir.
a good job holding it down in the off season, putting some news out as we went. A little bit of conversation. We had some drama this off season that helped.
We did. Yeah.
For sure. And
absolutely.
We've got actual football games on the horizon.
Yes, sir. Yep.
That's right. Aaron was watching last night. We were joking about Let's Ride a lot last night. Fucking Russ.
Nice. Oh, and hey, for those that are watching tonight that didn't see last week's episode, Gary and I were going on the road this year. We're first game of the season that we're going to go to is in Blacksburg, Virginia, Virginia Tech, West Virginia, September 22nd in Blacksburg. We're going to be podcasting from our tailgate right there, and then going from there, going to Tennessee, Alabama. So we got 2 games slated so far. We're looking to add a third, and yeah, we're looking forward to it, bud. Looking forward to it. Looking forward to meeting a lot of people this year.
If you're in those cities, man, come out and say hi. Especially if you're at the games, come say hi.
Yeah,
we'll have some swag on site, and love to see you guys out there.
Absolutely. Gary, college football starts in 3 days. Appreciate you joining again, bud.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you.
That is it for the Tailgate Trash Talk Season 2, Episode 2. Be sure to check us out every Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, followed by Rosenbaggers at 9. So Gary and I have about 10 minutes, and we will jump on for a Rosenbagger podcast. All right. For us at Tailgate Trash Talk, peace.